Good afternoon. The story takes place in a small Michigan town in 1944. The setting is an old building that once was a bus stop station and postal office. It opens in 1993 with Meghan Michelle Appleby returning after being away for nearly 49 years. She soon discovers memories don't easily disappear over passing time.
Christmas Diary of 1944 by Wayne Erreca. The story takes place in a small Michigan town in 1944. The setting is an old building that once was a bus stop station and postal office. It opens in 1993 with Meghan Michelle Appleby returning after being away for nearly 49 years. She soon discovers memories don't easily disappear over passing time.
Act 1, Scene 1. It's a late December evening. The stage is dark, with faint voices of Abbott and Costello being heard as a single light slowly rises on an antique radio. The voices of Amos and Andy smoothly turn into Bing Crosby singing White Christmas. The sound of a door unlocking breaks through, with the light on the radio slowly going to black as a flashlight shines through the open door. Watch your step. Curtis Cunningham, a middle-aged man in blue jeans and blue sweater, holds a flashlight, with Meghan Appleby, a casually dressed woman in her 60s, stands close behind him.
When did you say this building was last occupied?
It was the summer of 1973. Some hippies took a stab at turning it into a health food cafe. It didn't go over too well and closed tighter than a clam. Nobody's been interested in it ever since.
How about the Historical Society?
Nope. Nearly half the ladies were in favor of restoring it, but the majority sided with the developers to bulldoze it down in the spring.
Time hasn't changed it.
I suppose not, Mrs.
Meghan Appleby. I've never had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Wright.
No law says a person has to marry.
Well, you're an intelligent man, Mr. Cunningham.
It slips out once in a while, but it's never intended.
You mentioned you were born and raised in this town.
That's right. My father owned the richest farmland in these parts.
Benson Cunningham?
You knew him?
No, but I once heard his name before.
He died in 1955. Doctors said it was a heart attack.
Well, what became of his farm?
He left it to my mother. In 1962, my brother Charles died, driving a tractor in the cornfields when he was 14. She never got over it and passed away several years later. In 1976, my two sisters left the farm and went to California.
Are you managing it?
Yes, I am, along with my wife, Rebecca, 3 sons and my 2 daughters. Miss Appleby...
Oh, you can call me Meghan.
Oh, all right. If you don't mind my asking, what interest do you have in coming here? I know you're short on time and have a plane to catch, but you're the first person I've brought here in a very long time. You must have a good reason.
Mr. Cunningham.
Curtis will do.
I'm contemplating writing a book.
You're a novelist.
Well, not exactly. I'm a professor of history. I recently retired after teaching for 30 years, and the time seemed right to look into my own past.
Why here?
When I was 12, this was my home.
When?
In 1944, my mother and I made this place our home.
I'm fairly knowledgeable of the history of this building, but I don't recall any woman and daughter living here.
May I borrow your flashlight?
Here you go. He hands it to her as she slowly shines a light across the room, stopping his beam on an old radio atop a wooden counter. She moves to it.
Did you ever listen to the old radio shows?
No, that was before my time.
Nothing in this world compares to just sitting by the radio on a lazy evening listening to the crazy antics of Abbott and Costello and Amos and Andy. This was my mother's radio.
We found it in the attic, and we were going to take it to the Salvation Army. You can take it if you like.
Oh, yes, I'd appreciate that. It's getting late.
Is there anything else you'd like to see before we lock up?
No, memories are usually better kept at a distance.
Well, we better be going then. She lifts the radio. Here, let me take that.
Well, that's polite of you, Curtis.
You can thank my wife. She's the one who's trained me well. They move to the door, but she stops.
Would you mind letting me have a quiet moment alone?
Sure. Sure. Take your time. I'll wait. I'll wait for you in the car.
It won't be long.
He carries the radio out the door as she shuts it behind him. She takes a few steps, shining the light across the room. She walks to a wooden panel jutting out from the wall and calmly crouches, placing her fingers on a piece of paneling, jarring it free and exposing a small pocket in the wall. She shines a light into the crevice, reaching her hand inside, and pulls a small, dusty leather bag holding jacks and balls. She then pulls out an old tattered rag doll, and to her amazement recovers a small, dusty diary. She slowly stands, brushing the dirt off it, and moves to a nearby bench and sits. She opens its binding and begins reading it in a whisper.
To my precious little Maggie. Oh my God!
The door opens with Curtis entering. I thought you'd like to see something else in the attic. Are you all right?
I just found something I didn't expect to ever see again.
What is it?
My mother's diary. It's been 49 years since seeing it.
Where was it?
Oh, it was kept in a secret hiding place behind the wooden panel in the wall.
Imagine that. After all these years?
I can't believe it.
What was it like then?
Well, she faithfully wrote every night before going to bed.
My wife brags how I'm a good listener.
Do you mind if I read a little?
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. That is, if you don't think it's too personal.
Oh, she wouldn't mind, but don't let me drag on too long.
If I start snoring, just give me a kick and we'll be on our way.
It's a deal. Where to begin?
When starting a book, I usually start from the third page.
In 1944, I was like most kids my age, but my mother always said I was a born racketeer. She told her friends if President Roosevelt ever unleashed me on Hitler's Third Reich, the war would be won in a month.
You must have been quite a enterpriser.
Oh, she'd say that's an understatement. You're not in a hurry, are you?
Rebecca's had her bridge game until 10 o'clock, so I have time to spare. But what about your flight?
Oh, there are others. There are others. How are the batteries?
I put new ones in just this morning.
Good.
She turns to the first page.
Let's see. To my precious little Maggie, if you are reading this, then I'll know you've grown up. I can only hope you've lived a constructive and decent life, one filled with joy and achievement. My feelings expressed in the following pages are random accounts that I thought you might enjoy them. Forever with love, Mother.
How did she know you'd find it?
I don't know.
Read a little more, and it might tell us. She opens the diary and reads.
October 9th, 1944. It's been a cold day today, with a light breeze coming in from the east. Nothing particularly exciting happening around town, except for the usual gossip regarding Mr. Heisenberg. Zona is still her delightful self, forever spreading sour rumors. I haven't received anything from Robert for nearly a week. God knows I worry about that man. And poor Mrs. Coolidge. I'll get to her later when I'm not so tired. Robert would be so proud of little Maggie. She's a true baseball fan at heart, especially being a devoted Cardinal fan. He should have seen her as Emile Verban drove in 3 runs in the 6th game of the World Series.
Her voice begins to fade to a faint whisper as the lights slowly go to black. The voice of a radio sports announcer begins to be heard. Meghan and Curtis exit in the black as the lights slowly rise to 1944. Mrs. Petrice Appleby, the 35 years old mother of Maggie, is standing behind a wooden counter along with Jason Drew Sullivan, a retarded man in his early 30s, wearing overalls and a white shirt, leaning on a bush broom, with Meghan Michelle Appleby sitting atop the counter, listening to the World Series. Yes, fans, it's 1944, World Series between 2 rivals jockeying for the big prize. It's Game 6 between the sentimental favorite St. Louis Browns and the powerful St. Louis Cardinals. This could be it for the Sweetheart Browns. There's a wind-up. Emile Fervent's bat has blistering a hit into left field, driving in 3 runs. From where I'm sitting, I can see Cardinal manager Billy Southworth jumping up and down in the dugout. It's over. Cardinals win. Cardinals win. They take it in 6. The fans are going crazy. Look at those ball players. They're jumping around the diamond like a bunch of kids. San Musial and Marty Byron are jumping onto the pile. The ballpark is in mayhem. Finally score 3-2-1.